A cozy fantasy of light and dreams. In the heart of the mist-kissed valley lay Willowmere, a village cradled by ancient willow trees whose silver leaves whispered secrets to the night. The cottages, with their moss-soft roofs and crooked chimneys, glowed like distant stars as dusk melted into twilight. But on the eve of the harvest moon, something truly magical happened. The villagers lit the lanterns of Willowmere. Each lantern was handcrafted over many seasons, blown glass infused with flecks of moonstone, frames carved from driftwood pulled from the river, tassels spun from dream silk brought by traders who claimed to have crossed into realms beyond. When lit, the lanterns shimmered with more than just light, they carried the dreams and hopes of whoever lit them. That evening, as the first cricket song trembled in the air, Mira, the youngest dreamkeeper of Willowmere, knelt beside her grandmother in the lantern workshop. Together they filled lanterns with tiny charms. A folded wish written on blue paper, a sprig of night blooming time, a single crystal tear of dew gathered at dawn. Outside, the villagers gathered near the willow grove, carrying lanterns of every color imaginable. Emerald lanterns for healing, gold for joy, violet for courage, soft rose for love unspoken. When the elder of Willowmere, old Tom Lin with his braid of white hair, raised his staff, a hush fell. "Tonight," he said, his voice like the rustle of old pages, "we light not only our lanterns, but our dreams. Let them drift, let them guide, let them weave new paths for us all." One by one, the lanterns were lit. The glow rippled across the crowd like spilled starlight. Myra's lantern flickered softly, carrying her secret wish, to see the world beyond the valley and bring back stories. Then came the moment everyone waited for. The lanterns were released, not into the sky, but onto the river that wound through Willowmere like a silver ribbon. The water caught their light, and soon the river itself seemed to dream, glowing with hundreds of drifting lanterns. Fireflies joined the procession, weaving between lanterns, and the mist rolled low and gentle, as if the night itself leaned in to listen. Children giggled, couples clasped hands, and the old storytellers began their tales, of lanterns that floated beyond the river's bend into the realm of echoes, of wishes that found their way into the hearts of wandering spirits, of dreams so strong they became new stars in the sky. As the night deepened, Mira closed her eyes and felt it, that warmth, that shared magic of an entire village believing in light. She dreamed not only her own dreams but the dreams of everyone around her. In that moment, Willowmere was not just a village. It was a lantern itself, glowing in the darkness, alive with hope. And far away, beyond the hills, a faint glow rose into the sky, as if the world itself had answered. The Lanterns of Willowmere, Chapter 2, The River of Whispers. The lanterns drifted steadily down the moonlit river, their lights shimmering like a living constellation mirrored upon the water. Children ran along the banks, their laughter mingling with the soft hum of the night insects. Somewhere in the grove, a flute began to play, a tune as old as Willowmere itself, gentle and haunting, like the sigh of the wind through the trees. Mira lingered at the edge of the crowd, cradling her grandmother's shawl around her shoulders. The air was cool, scented with wild mint and distant rain. She watched her lantern, her dream, float further and further away, the glass glowing softly with a pale golden light. "Do you see it, child?" her grandmother asked, her voice a quiet murmur. Mira nodded. "It feels alive." Her grandmother smiled, wrinkles deepening like the rings of an ancient tree. "Because it is. Each lantern carries more than fire. It carries a piece of us, our hopes, our memories. And sometimes, the river carries them somewhere, unexpected." As the night deepened, whispers began to rise from the water. Mira leaned closer, unsure if she imagined it. Words like threads of wind seemed to drift past her ears, fragments of wishes, half-remembered songs, secrets too soft to speak aloud. The elder Tomlin moved through the crowd, lighting incense at small stone altars along the shore. "Listen," he called, "for the river speaks on nights like these." Mira closed her eyes and listened. She heard a wish for a lost love to return. A child's hope for a new pony come spring. An old hunter's prayer for his failing eyes. And beneath it all, something deeper, a melody, low and distant, calling her name. Her breath caught. No one else seemed to hear it. The river's glow brightened for a moment, and Mira felt her heart tug as if the current itself had reached out to her. Her grandmother placed a hand on her shoulder. "Some lanterns," she whispered, "do not drift away by chance. Sometimes they choose their keeper." Myra's lantern had paused midstream, circling slowly as though waiting. Then, without warning, the current pulled it toward the far bend, the place where the river disappeared into the dark forest, a place few from Willowmere dared to go after nightfall. A hush swept the villagers. Even the flute stopped. Mira felt a thrill of fear and wonder. The old man Tomlin stepped to her side. "If you follow, child," he said softly, "you step into dreams themselves. But dreams are not always gentle." Mira took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the shawl. "Then I will follow. A dream that calls my name must be meant for me." And so, lantern light guiding her path, she stepped away from the circle of safety, down to the river's edge, where the water shimmered with mystery and the forest waited, dark and full of secrets. The Lanterns of Willowmere, Chapter 3, Drums Across the Water. Mira followed the lantern along the riverbank, the cool night air carrying the sound of distant drums. At first she thought it was her heartbeat, quick and eager, but then she heard the rhythm deepen, a cadence older than language, a pulse that felt both African and American at once, like a heartbeat of two worlds joined by the night. The path twisted into a grove of tall willows and baobab-like giants that seemed impossibly alive here, their roots curling over each other like the braids in a mother's hair. Fireflies spun around Mira in constellations, and their light seemed to form patterns, a star map mixed with Adinkra symbols and old folk sigils her grandmother had stitched into quilts. On the far shore, shapes moved. A circle of figures sat around a low fire. Some wore bright Kent cloth that shimmered under the lantern glow, others wore denim jackets with patches from New Orleans jazz clubs and Harlem art houses. One elder played a gem, the deep sound rolling through the forest like thunder from a far-off savannah. Another strummed a weathered guitar, picking out notes that carried the soul of gospel and blues. Mira stepped closer, and one of them, an old woman with cowrie shells braided into her hair, looked up and smiled. "Ah, child of lanterns," she said in a lilting tone that carried both the softness of the river and the strength of the desert wind. "We have been waiting for you." The others nodded. A man in a straw hat poured steaming chai from a carved gourd into a tin cup, handing it to Mira. The tea smelled of spiced hibiscus and cinnamon, a taste that was both home and somewhere new. "Who are you?" Mira whispered. "We are the Dream Walkers," said a young woman whose voice sang with the rhythm of Harlem nights. "Our ancestors crossed oceans, some by choice, some by chains, but we carry lanterns too. When Willowmere lights its dreams, we hear them across the water." Myra's lantern drifted into the circle, its glow now mingling with dozens of others, some shaped like African calabashes, others like mason jars with fireflies caught inside, all carrying dreams written in many tongues. They began to hum together, a song rising like smoke. A Zulu lullaby met a Mississippi gospel refrain. A chorus golden strings intertwined with a blues harmonica's sigh. Drums and guitar, ancient and modern, African and American, merging into one heartbeat. Mira felt her own heartbeat join in, and suddenly she saw visions. Golden fields of millet under African suns. Lanternlit porches in the deep south, where grandmothers rocked and told stories. Markets alive with spices and laughter. Midnight trains and desert caravans, all journeys lit by the glow of a dream. The old woman with the cowries touched Myra's lantern. "Take this light," she said. "Carry both worlds in you. Tell their stories. Let them dance together." Mira nodded, tears bright in her eyes. In that moment, she felt larger than herself, a bridge between lands, a keeper of shared magic. The drums quickened, the fire grew brighter, and the lanterns rose, this time lifting into the air, hundreds of them, drifting over Willowmere and beyond, carrying every dream ever whispered into the night. The drums softened to a heartbeat rhythm as the dream walkers rose from their circle. One by one, they carried bowls and woven trays toward a pair of fires blazing side by side, one fed with fragrant acacia wood, the other with oak and hickory. Their flames twined together in the air like two tongues of the same song. "Tonight," said the cowrie-crowned elder, "we eat from both fires. 2 lands, 1 table." Mira stepped closer, and the aromas wrapped around her like a grandmother's embrace. On the acacia fire, a pot of spiced groundnut stew bubbled, thick with okra, greens, and tender goat meat, its scent rich and earthy. On the oak fire, a cast-iron skillet sizzled with buttery cornbread, edges crisp and golden, a recipe carried down through generations who worked the red clay fields of the South. Someone brought out roasted plantains glazed with honey and candied sweet potatoes dusted with cinnamon. A young man in a Kent scarf set down black-eyed peas simmered with smoked turkey, and beside it, a woven basket of sorghum flatbread steaming in the night air. Myra's lantern floated nearby, catching the glow of both fires as if it, too, was hungry. "Sit, little lantern keeper," said the guitarist, handing her a wooden bowl. The stew tasted like earth and sky. The cornbread like home and adventure. Each bite was a story, of a mother humming lullabies under a mango tree, of a grandfather humming blues on a porch as the sun went down. The food itself became a language she felt in her chest. Around the fires, the dream walkers told tales. Scroll of a Maasai boy who chased his lantern across the savannah until he found the first star of night. Scroll of a girl from Georgia who dreamed her lantern into a ship that carried her across the Atlantic in her sleep. Scroll of rivers that carried messages, of fireflies that were once ancestors, of lanterns that could outshine grief itself. Mira listened, wide-eyed. The night wrapped tighter around them, and above, the lanterns still drifted, now joined by the glow of distant villages, other fires, other dreamers across oceans. "Your journey is only beginning," the cowrie elder whispered. "Tomorrow you will carry stories home, and one day you will light a new lantern, one born of both fires." The drums rose again, faster now, calling feet to dance. Children twirled with bare feet in the grass. Women clapped in polyrhythms that tangled and teased. Men stomped and laughed, their movements sending sparks swirling into the night sky. Mira stood, the lantern in her hands, and joined them. She felt the rhythm move through her bones, through the soles of her feet, through the beat of her heart, a rhythm that was not just. Long after the dancing slowed and the fires sank to glowing embers, Mira sat beside the river. The lantern she carried still shimmered softly, pulsing as if it breathed. Above her, the night was deep velvet, scattered with stars that felt close enough to touch. The dream walkers moved quietly around her, folding cloths, stoking coals, singing low songs that braided English words with African tongues. Soft Wolof syllables curling into gospel hums. A Yoruba prayer slipping into a Delta blues refrain. Mira dipped her fingers into the lantern-lit water. It was warm, alive, filled with light like melted gold. A faint current tugged at her hand, playful and insistent. The cowrie-crowned elder crouched beside her. "Do you feel it?" she asked. Mira nodded. "It's calling me again." The elder smiled, teeth bright in the lantern glow. "Then you must go. The river does not only carry lanterns, child. It carries travelers of the spirit." With that, they brought a canoe carved from a single baobab trunk, its surface painted in red earth and river blue swirls. At its prow hung charms. A cowrie shell. A hawk's feather. And a tiny brass bell from a forgotten church. Mira stepped into the boat, lantern in hand. One of the dream walkers, a tall man with a Mississippi drawl, pushed her gently off the bank. The current caught her at once, smooth and sure, and the circle of fires began to drift away behind her. As the canoe glided downstream, the forest changed. The willows gave way to baobabs and cottonwood standing together, their roots entwined like dancers mid-step. She passed fields glowing under moonlight, one side sprouting millet and cassava, the other side corn and sweetgrass. Somewhere in the distance, a banjo began to play, answered by a chorus golden strings, their notes weaving over the water. Mira felt the river open wider, carrying not just lanterns but shards of memories. A market full of carved masks and hand-stitched quilts. A train rolling through Mississippi dusk with lanterns in every window. A village square in Ghana where drummers played until dawn, a quiet porch in Louisiana where a grandmother whispered stories to fireflies. The lantern in her hand pulsed brighter, and she realized it was no longer just her dream. It was their dream, woven from countless journeys, countless songs, countless hands that had lit lanterns long before her. Ahead, the river split into many shimmering paths. Some led into jungles thick with light. Some into misty hills where shadowy figures beckoned. Some into open sea under a moon so big it filled the sky. Myra's heart pounded. She whispered into the night. "Show me the path where stories live." The lantern flared, and the canoe gently turned toward a glowing horizon where the scent of spice and the sound of 100 voices rose like dawn. And so, she went on. Toward new lands. Toward new songs. Toward a future lit by the lanterns of all who dreamed before her. By dawn the river widened into a golden mist, and Myra's canoe drifted toward a shore alive with color and sound. Before her stretched a market unlike any she had ever seen, a market where memories and stories shimmered like silk. Stalls lined the winding paths, each one glowing with lanterns of every size and shape. Some lanterns hummed with ancient African proverbs. Some flickered with jazz notes and gospel hums from faraway American nights. All of them whispered softly as Mira passed, like wind through pages of 100 unwritten books. An old storyteller in a kitenge robe called out. "Child! Trade me a dream and I'll weave you a tale that can calm storms." A young woman with patchwork skirts and beaded braids held up carved gourds. "These hold laughter from villages across the desert, mix it in your cooking and your food will sing." A man with a banjo and a basket of sweet cornbread offered. "Share a memory, little one, and I'll play you a tune that brings the moon closer." Mira wandered deeper, the lantern in her hands glowing brighter with every step. She passed tables of carved masks, each one whispering its origin. A griot's face from Mali. A jester from New Orleans Mardi Gras. A bird spirit from tales told under baobab trees. The air smelled of smoke, honey, hibiscus, and fresh bread. Children ran laughing between stalls, chasing glowing beads that hovered like fireflies. Drums throbbed from somewhere in the distance, answered by a humming choir of unseen voices. Mira paused at a stall where an elder wove cloth that shimmered like water. "Your lantern," the elder said, "carries many fires. But it is not yet complete." "How do I complete it?" Mira asked softly. "By sharing," the elder said, hands never stopping their weaving. "Take what you've gathered, our stories, our songs, our foods, and carry them home. When you light them again, when you tell them in your own voice, the lantern will bloom into a star." Mira felt tears prick her eyes. She thought of Willowmere, of her grandmother's hands, of the dream walkers by the twin fires. She thought of the drums, the cornbread, the baobab canoe, the blues and the kora strings woven into one melody. She held the lantern high. It flared so brightly that the whole market seemed to pause, bathed in gold. And then, softly, the lantern spoke, not in words, but in a warm wave of understanding. "Your journey is the bridge. Your story is the light. Carry us." Mira took a deep breath and stepped back toward the canoe, her heart full of voices and visions, ready to bring them home and light new fires. Our map mixed with Adinkra symbols and old folk sigils her grandmother had stitched into quilts. On the far shore, shapes moved. A circle of figures sat around a low fire. Some wore bright Kent cloth that shimmered under the lantern glow, others wore denim jackets with patches from New Orleans jazz clubs and Harlem art houses. One elder played a gem, the deep sound rolling through the forest like thunder from a far-off savanna. Another strummed a weathered guitar, picking out notes that carried the soul of gospel and blues. Mira stepped closer, and one of them, an old woman with cowrie shells braided into her hair, looked up and smiled. "Ah, child of lanterns," she said in a lilting tone that carried both the softness of the river and the strength of the desert wind. "We have been waiting for you." The others nodded.